Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Village of Campton Hills. It's April 29th, 2025. What's the exact time? It's 5:39 p.m. Roll call.
Trustee Boatner?
Here.
Trustee Burson?
Here.
Trustee Benetti?
Here.
Trustee Muir?
Here.
Trustee Hoppensberger?
Here.
Trustee Millette?
Present.
President Warnicki?
Present. All right, thank you. Please rise for the pledge. Therese, will you lead us in the pledge? Oh, sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving along. Number 3, public comment.
Patsy Smith?
Don't forget to turn the mic on. Yeah.
Okay, nice to see you all. Thank you for taking my comments last week about the budget and revisiting it with your fine-tooth comb to correct several errors. First, I think given the board and the clerk and the president a copy of my requested changes of my comments last week to better clarify what I said, so I'd like you to consider that. Another issue that I'm concerned about, I've spoken a lot in the past about, you know, we had a big push from the FIAS group when we incorporated. So I know there's a large number of people that do not want to see fees. And if at all possible, I would like to request that that be not considered until maybe the end of the calendar year, beginning of the fiscal year for the next year's budget, because there were so many discrepancies in revenue projections and things. I'm not sure whether you need it or not, but I don't know whether the new trustees know about Dillon's rule, but that's an issue which basically home rule municipalities only have the right that the legislature gives us. We don't have the flexibility to do things in home rule municipalities, and so if you can't find in the state statute where it says we're allowed to do something, you can't do it, basically. And so one of my questions, it's clear, I saw you're going to be talking about additional revenue sources. I'm not going to argue. I think you have the right to have a telecommunications tax. I just think you should be aware that I calculated it, and if you chose the top percentage of 6%, it would be an additional $474 per year for my family. And on the video gaming, I did see, or not video streaming, I did see that the IML had a model ordinance, but I also found an opinion by a law firm that says that it's fatally flawed, and they gave their reasoning. And I don't know, for those of you that don't know the history, the one thing the Village of Campton Hills doesn't want to do is do more case law for the state of Illinois. We've done that in the past, and it's expensive to defend. So I would like to suggest that before you consider the video streaming tax, you find quite a few larger non-home rule municipalities that have already done it, and see if there's any case law challenging it. Somebody once told me, when you incorporate an area like this, you probably should have considered that people can afford to hire attorneys here to challenge us on everything they don't like. And I thought, oh, good point. But these are the comments that were made by this firm, and somewhere I wrote down the name of the firm. But they said there were 2 fatal flaws to the IML's revised draft ordinance of the municipal streaming tax ordinance. And they said one is the barred discriminatory tax on electronic commerce. And they explained that. They said electronic commerce means any transaction conducted over the internet. And they're saying that it's going to be barred by the Telecommunications Act, and then they talk about that. and it says, "The tax would discriminate against electronic commerce and thus be barred by the ITFA," which is the Internet Something Act. And then the second reason they gave in this opinion was, let's see, it says, "Unconstitutional extraterritorial tax under the Home Rule article of the Illinois Constitution." So if they're claiming it's fatally flawed for home rule municipalities, I'm saying there's probably a good chance that it's flawed for the non-home rule ones. And I'm just saying, if you pass it, I hope you're prepared to defend it. And unless, of course, Carmen's law firm would like to sign a waiver saying they're happy to defend it if we get sued, and then it wouldn't matter. But I'm just saying, I don't think you want to put yourself in that, because any money you would get would be eaten up in case law, setting case law regarding this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patsy. Any other public comments?
No.
No, John? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove item D.
4B? Okay.
D is in David.
Or D.
D, okay. Any others? Okay, I'll accept a motion to move the consent agenda with the exception of 4D.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Janet, second by Frank, was it? Nick? Okay, didn't see. All righty, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Hafzenberger?
Aye.
Okay, Mike, you want to go ahead with 4D?
Could we table? Is everybody okay if we
Sure.
table it? I want to make sure that the homeowners associations got buy-in from the offerings from Hank/Shodine, and if we can get confirmation from them.
Table it to the 6th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Date
Thanks.
certain?
Date certain to the 6th, yes, that'd be my motion. Table to
Okay.
date certain May
Second,
6th.
do I have a second to table?
I'll second.
Second by Kim. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Hafzenberger?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, moving along to action items. A, motion to approve ordinance 2510, approving the annual municipal budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026.
I so move.
Moved by trustee Millet, second by
I'll second.
trustee Kim.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, discussion?
Essentially, there was question on the revenue numbers, and we looked into it, and it determined that we used the state's November projections on revenue. They did an update in February, and Tim, just in an oversight, we looked at it, but he didn't move that calculation forward into the document. So that nets about $140,000 less in revenue from November to the current projections from the state NIDOR over those local distributive funds. So I think what was stated the meeting before by former President Patsy Smith is correct, that we used the wrong calculation. And it was 2 different time periods. It just drives the point, being dependent on the state has to do an update to those projections, and we come up $140,000 shorter. And there's nothing we can do about that. And some years it goes the positive side, this year it was a negative. So that is the starting point, and then Tim, if you want to hit some of the other.
Sure. So basically, this is kind of our third version of the budget. I've kind of documented that in the email I recently sent you. The walkthrough from the previous budget that had a deficit of $59,707. I listed the 10 items that got us to the new budget that's been presented to you. Really, I kind of look at this as maybe the board going through these 10 items and seeing which ones they are comfortable with or not comfortable with. I think it's important to reiterate kind of the framework I talked about last meeting, is that we have a pretty healthy fund reserve. We probably have more in our fund reserve than our budgeted expenditures for the year, which I think any municipality would be thrilled to be in that position. But that obviously does not mean we want to spend like drunken sailors. But I just think it's important to know that if you have a deficit budget, you have money in reserves to cover it. If you choose to push a budget that has a zero deficit, you're obviously going to have to make some cuts, and some of these items, 1 through 10, will not be included.
And one decision that this board has to make to confirm what was made by a previous board is that the 600,000 transfer from cash reserves that's not restricted fund balance was gonna be moved to pay for the 1.1 million cost share of the 4 million plus 4 roads we're doing this summer. You could do what a board did a few years ago and combine 2 years of MFT and get to a little over 900,000, and then you'd only have to move 200,000 out of cash reserves and put it in restricted. But this is the year that it's gonna occur. We talked about it last fall with the KDOT bypass, and I know Nick's nodding his head, he's like, yeah, I was really into that. So this budget, you gotta decide, are we moving 600 from cash reserve into a restricted account to account for that being spent, or you could make a decision, if that's the majority, that we just do 2 years of MFT and only have to spend 200,000 of cash reserve. That is a decision that the new 7 of you sitting here have to confirm, that was discussed and kind of outlined last year to move 600, but it's this budget year, so you have to decide that.
Okay, any other discussion?
I do believe on your table, trustee Burson did a lot of work and did a handout, and I think we should probably recognize her for the 8 to 10 items that she's really desiring for an adjustment, up or down.
Yes, trustee Burson, thank you for finding out my mistakes. I appreciate that. Kidding aside, sorry.
Patsy actually did quite a lot of the work in finding the IML stuff in particular, so IML, sales tax, a bunch of different things.
Okay, any other discussion? Mike? No?
Can we, I had a thought if we just sort of do this like a cow, sort of just, if we just kind of have a back and forth, is that be
Sure.
okay with everybody?
Sure.
So let's start with, what's our revenue number? What do we all agree is the revenue number? Are we looking at 3.2 or are we looking at 3.4? Which revenue number are we more comfortable with? Because I think that starts our conversations. Because the treasurer's last draft has 3.217, and then trustee Burson, Janet, had 3.237. So,
Then that difference is most of the sales tax use.
20 grand,
10 grand, is it?
20.
20,
20.
percent.
Well, we have an increase here in taxes over.
I'm sorry, 3.4, I'm sorry, 3.4.
Right, so.
Tim, your revised number is
So we left
3.4?
off here with the corrections, and somehow we got to here.
Yeah, that's it. So you're, the last column, fiscal '23
Yes,
budget
it's-
version 3?
Is 3.465, correct?
3.465 is our revenue number. Okay. We good with that?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not good with that.
Do you want to say which lines you want to make adjustments to
Well,
in your analysis?
so when we start out at the top here, this takes us down to general fund taxes. So we get into lines, 28, 29, 30, and so forth, right? So this is going to roll down through the whole thing because we had a number of for taxes of 2,734,507 that I thought was pretty good. And now we have a different number, but that tax number is composed of the total of general fund taxes in lines 23 through 28. So we would have to roll down and look at those numbers. So when we look at those numbers under income tax, I have 1,940,469 based on using the IML factor of 178.27.
I'm sorry, you have 1940469?
Correct.
That's correct. So I agree with the trustee's comment. If you can reference this page here, I think you should have it there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, that forecast we have now for the three LGDF revenue lines is $2.3 million. The really most recent IML
This sheet of paper,
publication,
folks, this
it brings it
is-
to 2.1 million.
This is the IDOR current projection number, and I think they're the ones that Janet used and Patsy, so we're all in agreement, this is the page we need to use factor.
I'm sorry? How do I get the difference?
I guess I would ask the same question, is why is it different if we're using the same number?
I'm sorry, what is the question?
Question is, why are the two numbers different if we're using the same factor? And I'm just trying to understand it.
Oh, right, well, this number here, this $3.4 million, as Mark said, that's gonna be lowered by $140,000, which is represented in this schedule. It's gonna be even less.
Yeah, we have to take Tim's 340.
It's gonna be 3.325 million.
Well, I'm still stuck on line 28, so, clearly these totals aren't going to be right if the individual line items that compose them aren't right. And so I think Frank's question, Trustee
So
Benetti's
if you
question
want to
is
just go
correct.
line by line, Tim, and take.
Sure, let's
take
do
this
that.
chart that everybody's got a copy of in front of them, and
Income tax, line 23, we have 1.883 million. You see that on the supporting schedule? It's actually be 1.9 million. So it's a $56,000 increase. I'm not going to keep going until everyone can follow this on the schedule. Are we all good?
So,
Yeah.
so we have 1,940,469.
Correct. That's what it should be in the budget.
But-
Local use tax is going to be 213,000 instead of 410,000. So we're going to lose about $197,000. Cannabis, pretty much flat, we're going to gain $109,000. I'm sorry, we're going to lose $109,000. All in, for those three line items, we're going to lose $140,743 based on the most recent IML estimates online.
But no, because cannabis is $18,000. How can we lose $100,000 over the prior?
$109. We're going to lose $109.
but total of those
Here,
lines.
I'm just reading off the schedule.
All right, so,
And
go.
so we have sales tax and video gaming tax computed somewhat differently. So where are you at on sales tax?
I'm not using IML for that.
Okay,
We're not using IML either, we went with our last actual. Is there a better? We went with the last actual. Is there a better?
No, I think I got to recall, I think we used the 7-month average and increased it by 3.5%.
But the actuals are available, so we use the actuals.
You want to use the actuals.
I'm just proposing to use the actuals since it's
Well,
available.
It's your budget. I mean, how big of a difference is it going to be?
so you're talking between
Realistically.
415 and 427?
$12,000.
Okay. Okay, do you want to add $12,000?
I don't know. I mean,
Well, I mean, I don't. I gave you the number that I just estimated. I mean, it's not
So
an
is the,
all-inclusive budget. I work with the administrator and the village president on it. If you want to increase it by a certain amount, we can do that. I mean, my primary concern when I presented a budget was a $45 million capital improvement plan. That was my primary goal when I presented the budget for the last 3 meetings. but $12,000 we can add.
So the new number we're agreeing to is gonna be 427,623? Is that what you're proposing, Janet?
That's what I'm proposing unless there's a reason to think that it's gonna go down.
So 427, 623 is our actual, is that our usually projected actual?
No, it's our actual.
That's paid. So that's our paid, okay. So we're thinking next year shouldn't be any less than what we've had paid this year.
That was the
That's
thought.
our thought, right? Okay, I'm fine with that number then, 427, 623. Okay.
No tariff downgraded on this one.
No,
Okay, good. Switch that one, Tim.
Can you formalize that in a statement, what you want to change?
The sales tax, change it to 427,623. I hear no objections to that number.
Okay.
Okay, and then video gaming. I think, Janet, you had a different view of that, too.
My thought was just that we have 2 establishments now, and for the majority of the last 3 years, that the average was otherwise computed from, we didn't. So if the expectation is the Village Squire is going to remain in business and continue with video gaming, I would think, some bump would be appropriate.
Because currently, Tim, how much did we have in for kind of a projected?
For video gaming,
Yeah,
we have 26,960.
we could easily up that by 9,000 to the 35,000 rough number that Janet proposed. I mean,
let's make it 35,000
you all
even.
know how people play video gaming. It's a growth. How much? One more store, if they could generate an extra almost 10 grand?
They may
Double
have,
it.
they may have just done that this last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been packed.
Well,
Yeah.
It's been packed, and they've been playing video gaming.
I assume, but fair enough.
So add 10, is everybody comfortable adding
Let's-
10?
Why don't you just make it around 35,000?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
I
what we
Yeah,
said.
agree.
gotcha.
I agree.
35,000
35.
to line 27, video gaming tax.
Yeah,
Done.
Yep.
We can do
35,000.
that.
Okay.
And then cannabis. Tim, what was the number you proposed on the average and trend?
18,180, 159.
Well, that's actually from the chart.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's close enough.
18069, 159, who cares, it's fine.
159.
But that comes from your chart.
that comes from IML.
And cannabis was projected at, it's gone from $1.64, $1.51, $1.59, $1.75, and then they, for some reason,
Sell on 166.
So,
165.
166 times our population, I get 18,069.
Okay.
we can,
What's the number, Janet?
18,069.
18069.
That's the number on my schedule, okay? we can
That's the
use
new
that.
one, right, okay. And then the only thing then is building permits, we okay with 100,000?
That's a shot in the dark.
I mean, that's,
Pretty much is.
building permits, we don't have Norton Lake at 10,000 a new
Right.
construction, so we're probably averaging 3 to 5 annually that are outside Norton Lake. Will we continue that trend? We know the Brower property off 64's got
Mhm.
empty land, and there's various places around
Oh,
the
yeah.
community. So saying 40,000 of that and 60 in fences, roofs, windows,
Okay.
hot water heaters. What's the other favorite one, Nick, that you want?
Replacement
The
windows,
one that you don't like. The one-
replacement windows,
Yeah.
But, so,
okay.
What
I don't really
number?
want to, we'll have another meeting about adjusting fees or eliminating permits coming up. But right now, we're going to say 100 grand,
Okay,
all right?
so if that's the case, then Janet's number 2734507 is the number for taxes,
For revenue.
revenue, yep.
I think that's good.
Are we all comfortable with that $2,734,507 for revenue projected in the new budget?
I'm good.
Okay, everybody nodded. Now, let's, instead of just assuming we're gonna argue about all of them, Tim, I think, talking to Tracy as the clerk, Tracy, what is the true number for liquor licenses? Because you've totaled them up, except for La Pinta, you've got them all in, right?
Here.
Is it 11.8 or just about 12?
She's looking, hold on.
Because we could actually, now that we're this late in the game, we can actually put the
We're all
true
solid, too.
We're
now.
solid number.
Yeah.
So for actual liquor licensing, we're at 11,350. We did lose the farmhouse school at 250, but it does not include the $75 that we would get for the church's 24-hour license when they have their festival. And then gaming is 5,000.
All right, so we should make an adjustment on gaming, Tim?
Very good.
So
11,350 and 5,000 on gaming.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, yeah.
Just go 11.5, Tim.
11,500 it is.
All right. And I would leave it to trustee Burson had some other adjustments, and I'd leave it to her. I think you had some good analysis, trustee Burson, on why you think that some of the AT Universe and fees are
Well-
Comcast.
UVerse is a canceled product. You can't buy it anymore. So only people who have it still have it, and people are getting rid of it quickly. I think that's driving to zero.
So
Uh,
you're
Bring
projecting
that to zero.
dropping 4,000 down to 2, or do you want
Right.
to go to 0?
No, I don't think it'll go to zero the first year.
Let's go 2.
Yeah.
Reduce it from 4 to 2, Tim. And then Comcast, we've seen that trending, you know, we're losing 20,
Oh,
30
yeah.
grand a year steadily as people go to video streaming. So is everybody comfortable with the proposal of going to 120 instead of 140?
Well,
Their actual last year's 138, so, yeah.
We probably should drop it because.
130?
Yeah, the question is, do you want to drop it by
130,
8,000 to around 130, or do you want to go all the way to 120?
You go to 120? You would know, Kim. Okay. Good call. All right.
My next item is on line 60, driveway access
Driveway,
permit fee.
yeah.
With the advent of no more Norton Lake, you want to drop that by 14,200?
If the idea was that there's 3 to 5 houses, which the
Yep.
median is 4,
Yep.
times what I understand to be 1450
Yep.
each,
Yep.
that seems correct.
So we changed that one to 5,800. Tim, that's a loss.
Line 60, that is?
Yes.
5,800.
Driveway access.
5,800.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
You sure you wanna go down that far?
Yeah, that's pretty,
How much are they a piece again? They're 14.50 a piece?
Yeah.
So, so that's half of 10, so that's 5, right? That's 5.
Yeah.
Only 5? I don't know.
Yeah, some people add an extra access off a road, but we don't always give it to them either, you know?
True,
you
yeah,
know. And sometimes they're just temporaries. They build something in their backyard, then they take it away.
That's true. Okay, if that's what everybody else is cool with.
I tend to think we probably should reduce it more because
Okay.
I'd rather be more conservative on revenue than,
you dropped it a lot already.
yeah,
5,800, yeah.
5,800. We can round it to 6 if that just makes easier math for
Yeah.
everybody.
Let's do that.
6,000?
Yeah,
Check.
6,000.
So an even 14 decrease.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Janet, the next one was on the positive side.
What number?
Oh, accident report?
Dues and subscription.
I was informed by the clerk that
Traveling and lodging. meetings.
we actually have had a dramatic decrease in that number because people realize that they can actually FOIA a lot of this information and not pay us for it.
Oh, so the FOIA facts and reports are not paying?
Yep, they
Oh,
are.
on FOIA. Okay.
So that's line what, again? That's
66.
66.
67.
67, so it drops
67.
by how much?
Cut it off to 0?
66
or
on
Want to
this,
cut it in half? I don't
on
know.
this
Oh, I
report.
see what you're saying. You're saying some people will still pay for them?
Well, some people paid $848.
Chief wants to be
without
heard
this.
on this one.
That's slightly correct and slightly off. So what happened is when we went to LexisNexis, which is electronic, anytime, even if someone does not go through us, they go to LexisNexis to get a copy of the report, which they have to get. They pay $5 for that report. LexisNexis sends us checks typically every month to reimburse us for the cost of that. So usually like once every month, every 2 months, we get checks. Granted, the checks may be, $75, $100, depending. We are still getting revenue and the thing people have to remember on FOIA is if you contact the police department and you say, I want to FOIA this, and if you don't meet the strict requirements, you're going to get an accident report that's redacted that doesn't do you much good. So that's the reason people go to LexisNexis, because however they do it, they don't have to redact it, and they provide it, but we do still get fees for the accident reports.
So what do you think in a year, 2,000?
I don't know if I would go quite that high on it,
Maybe
but
1,000?
I would say roughly, I would guess probably, I would have to look at it, but probably maybe $1,000 would be safe on it. I mean, our accidents are increasing too, so I guess it depends on the amount of accidents we have,
Everybody
so.
good with 1,000?
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Yes,
Yeah, that's revenue.
next one, Janet?
I think it boils down to how you want to handle the expectation of grant revenue. Chief Levand had provided a list of various grants that the police department, the police department has applied for, apparently for all of them, but some of them are really for us. So we're really appreciative that Christine is able to help us.
And the only one I can guarantee we're gonna get is the 35,000 deco for deferring some of the cost of the road project this year. It was supposed to be a grant
Yes,
tailored
okay.
for lead pipe
Okay.
replacement, which would have been a larger number, but since we don't have a water or sewer department,
And that was
they
on the list
they
I got.
deferred us, gave us 35,000 almost guaranteed to get that. The other ones, as the chief explained last meeting, we have a good chance. I would argue that you could put in the items like a generator that we talked about and had money in, we need to carry it over. And the squad car, the speed trailer, and the IT infrastructure and software. And then you still, as trustees, those are gonna be more than $5,000. Every one of those items will come before you. For instance, the speed trailer, you could just say, we're gonna put it in the budget, but if we don't get the 50% matching grant of 10, we're not gonna spend 20. And that's a way to handle it. And the ILSP is the big money for personnel. And it's hard to say whether we're gonna get $200,000 out of the LSP for personnel. I mean, we could, but I don't know how we project
We didn't project
that as a win. The only one I know we're gonna get is 35, good chance on the speed trailer based on the feedback Christine has given myself and chief. But the other ones are, and we had penciled 45,000 in the last budget of remaining COVID money for the recovery, ARPA. And that was going toward a generator, but we haven't got the invoice from the county yet, and then the installation. So we kind of have to close out by May 1st, so we're going to have to do a thing tomorrow to say we're closing out the 45 and putting it toward like the servers we already bought that are an eligible expense, because we need to close, the window is not going to be extended further as you've watched stuff in DC.
Yeah.
they're
Right,
gonna
let
start
'em-
clawing back if you haven't spent the ARPA.
Yeah, they'll take it back.
They'll take it back, so we're just gonna, bookkeeping wise, put it toward the eligible expense. But then we're gonna have a generator for this next budget year
Yeah.
of some dollar amount. So you could put those expenses in, but you know you're still gonna control expending it when it comes before the 7 of you. And then you don't have to get in the miscellaneous uptick that I had Tim do of 150,000 isn't aggressive enough on getting the grants as some as you would like, but it's not wildly overstating our success rate either. Instead, or you could say, nope, we're not putting it in, and if we get it, we can do a budget amendment at that time
Yeah.
to do the expenditure. It's the choice of the group.
Chief Levan, there was a grant outside of the IT one, the Riverboat IT one, which there was pretty high confidence on. I thought there may have been another one besides the speed trailer grant. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, all the grants that we've done right now, if you ask me which one that I'd feel extremely confident about, and I'm actually gonna cut it in half, and I'll tell you why. So we applied with iLetsby for our body camera storage grant. As long as everything's done properly, that is pretty much handed out to the majority of all agencies. The reason being is when they put the Safety Act in that required the body cams for departments, it was their way to sort of say, oh, okay, we'll be nice and help you. So what iLetsby did this year, so we applied for the grant in the 24-25 budget cycle. The grant's not being awarded till late June, which would be the 25-26 budget cycle. iLetsby let us go ahead and submit for both budget years, which I think was just under $50,000. I'm confident that iLetsby's gonna come back and say, we're gonna give you at least $25,000 of that. I'm hoping we get the whole 50,000 because they were the ones that told us, submit both budget cycles, you'll be good. But if you're asking me in a vote of confidence, I would sit here and say $25,000. I'm extremely confident, but I would anticipate we would get the full 50,000 for both budget cycles, just because they were the ones that told us to submit both budget cycles and that they would take care of it.
And politically, the state mandated it, and a lot of times it's unfunded mandates. This one, they're choosing to say they'll fund. So that's 50 that 50 plus the 35 and a good chance with that trailer we'll get the 10, but.
And to the retention grant, like, yes, I'm confident, but I don't want to be too confident because it's such a substantial amount of money. If you looked at the criteria for who that grant goes to and who it's been awarded to in the past, it is agencies like the Campton Hills Police Department. They're looking for location, how much is your tax revenue coming in, what budget do you have to spend on it? So we meet all that criteria. I just don't want to be the gentleman, especially right now in budget talks, that are going to sit here and be like, yep, we're going to get 650,000 and we can use 325 this budget and 325 next budget, because it has to be divvied up. It's to cover 2 officers, full salaries, full benefits for a 2-year span. So half has to be used this budget year, and then the other half would have to be used the next budget year.
And to the chief's point, the fact that we have no property tax, we have no local sales tax, and we don't have utility taxes on gas and electric like everybody in the state, that could actually be used to our advantage on this grant, because we are truly the needy, because we have no other sources of revenue.
True.
So, I mean, there is a chance, that's why I say we should put these different capital things in the budget, because there's a chance this other revenue will happen, but it's hard to pencil that in as grant revenue when we don't have a grant letter awarding.
Yeah, I would only ask that we put something in there because we have a history of it. And the state does give guidance on how to budget for grants. And I haven't had the chance, I just haven't had the time to do the research, but there's even a hotline that you can call and they'll walk you through it. So even if, we'll do something this time, but I would hope that we can.
Do you want to go more than 150 and
I'm
go?
not trying to change anything in the budget today. My request is that going forward, that we do the research on how exactly to budget for grants, because it is allowed, the state has guidance on it. And I think they can walk us through it, so.
Yeah, in the past, it's always been award letter is your guarantee. Then that's always June or July, not April.
Oh, yeah, but they do allow you to budget for it, so.
Yeah, I mean, but it ultimately is a decision the board, we have 150. Is there a
I'm-
desire to go higher?
I'm going lower. I'm at 83 on grants, because I have 23 for the Riverboat IT grant, is that approximately right? 25 for the first year, because you can only spend it this year anyway, even if you get both, for the body cam grant. 35 for the DECO grant, which we have to earmark for roads anyway. So, that, I mean, to me, that's only 83 of, kind of found money.
I had Tim increase it to 150 from his original number last meeting, just because it was,
I'm at 83. So I'm adding 23 and,
under the, are you doing it under miscellaneous revenue, or what line?
well,
are
right
you doing?
above miscellaneous revenue, we
Above
had,
it so we can see the difference.
we had grant IT and,
So the 250
and
is
grant
by itself.
revenue police, and then grant revenue DECO.
Last meeting, we had mentioned coming up with a number for our actual revenue for '25. Did we have that actual number? I know that's what Janet's trying, that's what she's calculating, but didn't you also have some idea of what
So we
Janet's
should only change it by
talking about? She had the IT, the roads.
Yeah, on the police department side, we had ILETSP for the recruitment retention, ILETSP for the body cams and storage, the ComEd 10,000 matching grant, the Riverboat one that we filled out, the TASER one we won, we were already awarded that, so that
That was
was.
last year.
Last, technically, yeah, a couple weeks ago, and I believe that is the ones that we have out right now.
Because that was my thought, is that use last year's actual numbers,
Well,
and it'll
we
be our
had-
goal to beat it.
we didn't have very many in last year. The big money's this coming year,
Are we,
So those are gonna be awarded in '26, everything?
25, 26.
25, 26. Do we have a number for what we were awarded that will be in '26? That's what you have right there at 83,000,
That's the
Janet?
expectation.
That's-
The 35,000, I think Mark knows, is locked down. And the 23,000 and 25,000, there's a high degree of confidence, sounds like from talking to Chief Levand. The two things that I recall from reading about the way the state wants us to book grants is that we need to have a schedule that supports those grant numbers. So, we have this, it's not attached to this document, but we have this from the chief for the ones that have been applied for. And then the other thing is that we have to book the match where we have one, and I believe we've done that already.
that's my question, did we book the extra police officer yet in the salaries?
Currently, we are, what is considered in the salary is what would bring us to full-time level. But just remember, if we're talking about the recruitment retention grant, that is zero on the village in that. That is up to if you said, we're at full staff level right now, we want to hire 2 additional officers with this, you could do that. If you want to say that the staffing level we're at right now is where we want to stay at,
You call
that's
it
the reason they
retention.
call it recruitment and
Retention, okay.
retention on
Okay.
it. So it's up to the village
Well,
to
then we need-
use it depending how they see fit with the needs.
Well, then we need to put it in here. If we're showing the expense, we need to show the revenue. So that's not in here right
So
now.
that's
Well, that one has
how
no
we got there.
expense.
No, it's in the salaries. It's in the police salaries, that's
Is
what
that how
Chief
we
had just
got
said.
there? Yeah.
But the
But-
salaries are in there already, so it would be retention.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it would be called.
And that grant is speculative, right? I mean, we
Well,
hope,
then we don't go up, what I'm saying is, then the police budget, the salaries in the police won't go up that high if we don't get the grant. So we can either lower the police salaries to what we think we won't get the retention grant, or we do like you just said, we'll put them both in there, we'll show that, and then, to Mark's point, if we don't get it, we don't have to, we won't be able to spend it.
I feel
on
like the
anything.
commitment was to staff the police department fully,
But
regardless.
But
we're
it's
going
re-
to,
it's
we're going to
retention, too.
10 no matter what, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're budgeted for 10 currently. If he gets awarded the grant, it'll cover the salary for 2, so we'd have a surplus in our expense on salary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is fine, then
So
then we
it does
should,
make sense.
then we should show the grant.
Right.
It'll help us balance the budget.
I mean, either way, the expense is going to be there, it's just going to make us look better if the grant comes through, right?
Well, we make it as,
Well, you'll get a lot closer to a balanced budget without taking cash reserves to get
Yeah,
to a balance.
yeah.
Well, you could stop right now, because if you book $350,000 that you don't know you're gonna get, then we've got a surplus and we're done. Get police cars, you got dinner, I mean,
But again, you get in June, July, August, get to decide if we're gonna make those
Yeah.
expenditures.
Yeah, to me, this one's a little different, because you're gonna have the expense either way. Some of these grants, you're not gonna have the expense unless you get the grant, so.
This one we do.
Yeah,
So you'd say put 200 in?
that's what it would be, chief?
Is it, what number was
May I
it?
interject just for a second? Maybe I'm
Yeah.
understanding the argument here. We're gonna have the expense either way, then I would think we wouldn't book the revenue. But if we're not gonna have the expense, because we may not get the revenue, then I think we should book them both. Does that make sense? In other words, if you're gonna incur that expense no matter what, and you're not sure you're gonna get the revenue, then it's really not an offset. You're gonna incur that expense no matter what.
yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
And I
Okay.
may have misunderstood you.
No, okay.
No, I said the same exact thing. The question is, do we put the 200 in there to offset it or not?
On the revenue.
So,
And then the question, what is the true number of that?
Well, the true number is that when we did this grant, actually Treasurer McPhillips, was a huge part on this. Where we came to that number on there, so, and I'm saying the 650, the 325 a budget year, like, I'm not saying that's exact, I have to look at what the exact sense was, like, we came down. But it broke down to 2 officers for their salaries, all their benefits, that included earned time, that was everything, came to that 325 that was in a, 1-year period. So that's how we came to that. I mean, it's not the exact cent, we do have it figured out, I'd have to pull it for you, but roughly it was the 325 for 2 officers, salaries, benefits, earned time, everything was computed into that. That's how we came to that number.
Okay,
Is
well,
that for 1 or 2 years?
It's split, it's 650
Okay.
for 2 years, but it's 2 officers for each year.
Okay, so
So,
it's three
yeah.
and a quarter is the offset number that trustee Benetti was asking to possibly add into the revenue side.
well,
Yes, that would be the total cost for 2 officers for the 1 year.
Do you feel comfortable doing 325, or do you want to do a lesser number?
yeah,
That's a
in
big
thinking
jump,
about it,
huh?
it might be better not to include it.
well,
I don't feel comfortable because it's, we don't
Too much
have
of
a
a
degree of
jump.
confidence on it.
Okay.
really.
Yeah.
let me,
It may be just artificially getting us to a positive net.
well, but still, let's look at it this way, if we could for a moment. Okay. So police salaries by over, we're going up 600,000. That's not just hiring 2 people. We're rolling up overtime, right? So overtime was 228 of that. So and then there's some bennies. So if we're looking at a net increase in police services of about more than 300,000, the commitment to do that is one thing, right? And the funding is the second. So do we say we want to get there and we'll go 1 now, and then when we get this grant, we'll go for the second type of thing? Or, because then the want is one thing, we want to get up to this number, excuse me. But to the comment from the previous meeting, what percent of the budget is policing services? That's our concern. So if we're just going to say we're just jumping the police budget by this much, which would be like $367,000, interesting, close. I don't think it's a problem to say part of the way we're going to help do this is with this grant. And then we can always say,
We've committed, chief, to that point, we've committed 1 hire that we swore in to send to the academy. And we haven't yet offered the lateral transfer job yet. We've got a list, but we haven't made a job offer yet, right?
Yeah, that's correct. You're down 3 officers.
Yeah.
we're going to get back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think we defer, we just, to the point, we'd make the 1 offer right away, and the third officer to be
Third.
replaced, we'd wait till we hear on the grant, is what I think Chief, Trustee Millet's saying.
Maybe, I mean, it just, because then the numbers gets, the transition becomes a little bit less severe.
And the pressure on the budget's
All right,
adjusted a little bit.
That's your guys' decision.
But I'm the new kid on the block, so I'm just trying to understand. Prior to us coming on, there was a budget already approved for 10 officers, right? Last year?
Last year, yeah. But we didn't get to that number because of some departures and personnel issues.
Okay, so that was a budgeted number last year, it just carried over to this year. So the goal is to have 10 full-time police
10
officers,
plus
right?
the deputy
Yeah.
chief and the chief.
So whether we
don't
get a
count
grant
as
or
10.
not,
Yeah.
we're going to 10.
That's right.
And I think
what
what trustee Millet is saying, that we hold off on 10 based
Get
on
to
if the
9
grant money
and don't
comes
do
in.
10
I'm
until
just
we-
trying to get it straight in my head.
He's saying,
so.
do the 9, don't do the 10th till we get the grant to take some pressure off our budget, essentially, right?
I took it a different way. I took it that there's $367,000 of additional police expense. And he's saying that sort of, it's a little more, but it kind of aligns with the two officers that this grant covers. And so if you book that grant, hoping that it's going to cover those officers, and if you get it, great. If you don't, you're still going to have to find that money, which is so I don't mind booking the grant, but if you book the grant, then I'd really like to see a surplus that's over $300,000. You know, I don't think we can spend it.
Yeah, I
okay,
think that's what Trustee Millet said.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm fine.
not spend the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
10th officer till we get the grant.
well, and there's
It's
always,
kind of a halfway point between the two.
Well, there might be
arguments.
something else
Yeah,
we're
no,
not
I-
spending it.
well, there's always churn too. I mean, for 12 individuals, you will be fully staffed 1 month out of every year or something. I mean, you know, there's always that too. I mean, so the budget number, we're not, if we budget 1.3 for salaries, we're never gonna hit 1.3 for salaries. That's the budget. Something will change that. It'll come in at 1.2, or it'll come in at 1.1. That's just the reality of that many people. So yeah, I think if we go that route, then we show, you know, if we were to go right now, that would show a surplus of how much, Janet?
Right now, we're at a surplus of $346,255.
Okay, so I think, okay, I'm okay with that, because then, yeah, then if it comes in, then it all works.
But that's counting the 325 that
Mhm.
maybe not, and that's counting the 35,000 in DECO money that
Mhm.
has to go to roads.
But there's the road transfer later.
I think one
We don't have the
issue,
offset for it, though, is what I mean.
No, that's true.
one issue to point out, though, is that the police department needs 10 full-time
Yep.
officers.
Yeah, not disputing that.
So are we saying that our policy then is going to be that if this speculative grant is not received, then the police department is limited to 9 full-time officers?
Nope, then we have to
No,
forego
he's
something
gotta
else.
stay
Then we
with
have to
10.
forego something else.
Mhm.
So putting this speculative revenue on the budget, I mean, that's a big if.
Mhm.
Why aren't we using just actual numbers? What's the, it's not going to cause us to not go after the grant money.
No, there was just a
Yeah.
discussion that we should be more aggressive on booking grants.
And I like being more aggressive,
this
but I
aggressive.
think we need to
Okay.
use like real numbers, you know, because there's a lot of grants that have been applied for in addition to this that we haven't received the revenue for, and we don't use those.
Don't we also have the possibility of amending the budget
That's
if the money
right.
comes in? I think that makes more sense. I get a
That's
little
right,
nervous,
too.
like, when you're talking about the small grants, not as big of a deal, but this is huge. And I think we have the ability, right, to,
Yes, we do
I
have the
think that
ability.
Yeah.
McPhillips will be very happy if you do that route, because I'd rather do a success budget amendment to receive the money.
Yeah, I think
Then
the
to
difference
not.
is we have a set expense and
Yes, we do.
and a variable revenue.
Yes.
I agree.
So if you have a variable revenue and a variable expense, then it makes sense, right? Because you can eliminate the one expense if the revenue doesn't come in.
That's
In this
Right.
particular case, it's a little different. So,
yeah, I agree. I think you and I talked about that or something, but we said, you know, it matters whether or not the expense is already there. or if we're adding in expenses to kind of zero out the grant so that it has this net zero effect. But in this case, that's not really what's happening. And
So
like you said,
going
it creates issues
back to the
with,
future, the 83.5, was it 85 that you said?
83.
83,
believe, yeah.
83,500 that Jen had originally
83,000,
proposed?
yeah.
Do you want to just round it to 83,000 and be comfortable
I
with
think it
that?
makes sense to forecast a little increase, like 20%. We can put some pressure on ourselves.
Let's go for an even 100
Go for an even 100. I
All
think that
right.
That's super reasonable.
between,
So
100,000 for grant
100,000 under that grant line. But correspondingly, do you want us to not do miscellaneous revenue at 150 and just do a lesser amount so we don't double tap the revenue?
I only have it at 250.
Huh?
I only have miscellaneous
Looks like
revenue
it's
at $250. So I have a total of $100,000 of grants and $250 miscellaneous.
we're saying we should add a grant revenue line.
yeah.
Right, I got 4 of them.
So just take-
Replace the
yeah, take it
miscellaneous
out of
revenue.
That's right.
All right,
I mean, because that's where you guys put it, right? If we get a grant, you throw it in miscellaneous?
miscellaneous revenue.
Yeah, okay.
Tim, are you capturing that?
So 69, line 69, miscellaneous income, now going to be $100,000. And like a new line item?
Or you could just rename that to grant,
Yeah.
grant revenue.
Just put a parentheses behind that 100,000 as,
And we'll give you a schedule
Grant
that
revenue.
supports it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
and we'll reference the chief's memo schedule of grants applied.
Plus deco.
No pressure on this one, Chief.
So that'd be 100, Tim.
All right.
All right?
Let's move on, yeah.
And there was a couple others you had, Janet, that you wanted to talk about.
I think everyone that's gone to IML has benefited from it, so I'd like to make sure we continue to budget something for that. I know we're also, the trustees haven't had an opportunity to go yet, but we also send people to Springfield. Actually, you've been.
Oh, that, yeah.
this year, but yeah.
So, while we regrettably have to cut a lot of things, I was suggesting maybe 2,500 for
Where are you
those
at?
conferences. I'm on line.
Travel and lodging?
Yeah,
Travel and lodging.
82.
82?
So that's an additional cost of 2,500, Tim.
Now, could it be from the information tech for elected officials? I'm assuming that is the computers, but we all have a computer?
Yeah.
Could that be reallocated and just shifted down to
Nice.
the line 82? Because we,
That's a better, well, but there are licenses and stuff to keep things running too, that we gotta be careful. There are expenses.
There
Kim?
are, yeah,
But
there's
they make it
monthly
25.
costs for our 365 tenant that we get billed for, and it's separate than the Helping Hands contract. The other thing too is if we don't get the Riverboat grant to cover, when I'm really hoping that we do get it, we have devices that need to be replaced because Windows 10 goes end of life in October.
Ooh,
And these machines need to be actually replaced because they cannot handle Windows 11. That's why there's.
The hard
20
drive available is,
No, it's actually the,
It's more
well, without
complicated.
getting in the weeds, it has to do with the security, but.
yeah.
Hmm.
It won't run.
and that's in village board and legislative?
Some of it, yeah.
Some of it is just for these Chromebooks?
Well, the idea wasn't for us to get new Chromebooks though, right?
No.
So is the Windows 10 and,
This is
stuff
current.
for us, is it budgeted separately from what's in the GNA budget?
No, it should be that information tech line is where it was last year. It was like 25,000, I thought.
105.
Line 78, though, for village board and legislative, the $2,500.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to be there.
That
Matter of
doesn't.
fact, I'm probably gonna turn that Chromebook back in.
Because there was no actual expense last year either.
Yeah. So what, go back to what Nick was saying, take that 2,500 off that line and drop it down for travel and lodging. Yeah. Zero out the one and put it It won't affect the budget bottom line, it's just a net.
Okay.
Line 83 will be $2,500, and line 78 will be zero.
Check.
Correct.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but the people on the camera can't.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other lines to request changes on?
While we're in this field, the other professional services, we didn't have any expense there either. That's a $1,500 line item, village board and legislative. Line 79.
Training and registration.
And really, the next few things after that, if we just look at the actuals, you know, there's a $6,000 line for dues and subscriptions. We spent $579. That's line 82. 962 for training and registration is what we spent. We have $2,500 budgeted. From my perspective, we run pretty lean. I don't know how much expense the village board really needs. It has $72,000 budgeted for it. 53 is.
So we kind of don't, we can't identify the professional services, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would say all of these could just be reduced down to actuals, and if they were zero, then it should be zero.
And so what do you think dues and subscription should be?
Well, yeah.
$579? It said the spend was $579 last year. And it's got $6,000
Entertainment then
budgeted.
is-
But the last couple of years, it was much higher than that, so the, may not be accurate.
Yeah, but the highest was 4,400. So yeah, we could definitely chop that 6 down.
I call it 45 or 5?
That's the highest it's been back in '23, so it would be safe, 4,500.
Dues-
Get rid of other professional services. Get rid of, reduce. So do we want to, Tim, do you want a consolidated kind of list to go off
Oh,
of?
Go on down. I can mark it up.
Okay, all right. So I believe information tech would be zero,
That's zero, we have that, line 78.
Other
professional services,
zero.
everyone okay with zero? Zero
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Line 81, 4,500.
Instead of 6?
Good?
Instead of 6,
Line 83,
Are we dropping it to 45, dues and
Yes.
subscriptions?
line 80,
82 is 2,500. We just agreed to that.
Got that.
83 then would be training and registrations. That's never gone over $1,000. 962 last year, so 1,000 even.
Okay.
Line 84.
You're going to get to a police car before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like that leans up that field pretty well.
That's more of an actual, leave that one alone.
For risk management? Yeah. And then the 250 for meeting supplies, the most we ever did was 134.
Yeah, that's so minimal though,
Yeah,
anyway.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, leave that as is.
Yeah, I was done.
Okay.
I have questions on salaries, regular. At the moment, we don't have any increases in this budget. And my understanding is we have, in this particular number of 213,906, I think that is composing 3 people in the admin office, not, I think that's our treasurer, and 2 One full-time person and one part-time. is that
Two
right?
part-time, the front desk at part-time and the permit clerk is part-time.
Alex is under building and zoning. So I don't think it includes Alex, but
It does not. But the salary reduction of 34,922, that does include Alex. That is not down under.
right, which we
What
have
number
still to
is that?
consider.
What
So-
number is that, Tim? I'm sorry.
Line 90.
90?
So would you be able to break out for us what is the portion of this 213 that is the one full-time and part-time person that's admin?
213,
Yeah,
90?
yeah, 213,906.
No, I don't have it here in
It's
front of me.
I think it's the treasurer position, the
It is.
Michelle Holly and the Julie.
Right. I mean, I can give you, I think, the hourly rate, I think they're getting.
Well,
Well, we
I was just trying-
proposed a 3.5,
and we're just trying to find a way to break that out and give it to them.
the 3.5% pay raise, same as the police COLA.
So if we could estimate it at least.
Is this a place we could come back to after we get through the rest of this budget and
Sure.
see what we come up with?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's about 101 for the other people, 101 or 102.
All right,
Yeah, it is, and then Tim is like 112, and that gets you to 213, roughly.
oh, you know what, I'm sorry. What was in here was the intern.
Of 22,000.
Ah,
okay.
That's a new position
Yeah.
that we need to discuss.
And that's out.
That was gonna be helping with grants, or you wanna just stay with Christina and me?
No.
And I like Nick's idea of returning to this.
You mind? Yeah, Therese has volunteered, actually right after our last meeting, to sign up for a grant class over at ECC, and she's already signed up. So we can take that out. Yeah, thank you, Therese, that was great.
Put in
forward to it.
reimbursement for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a.
Oh, yeah.
It's an inexpensive class, it's 175, it's
Yeah.
an online.
We should still pay for it.
I'll do it, I've got
Awesome.
3 months to do it, but I'll do it much quicker than that.
All right, so we could eliminate the intern at 22,000. And
Or
that
you
would
can
more
just-
than take care of the 3.5 for the 3 people.
Or you can just send it over to me.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, what line
Give you
item?
5% of whatever you catch.
I know they're hopping all over.
This may be helpful to the trustees. In my email, line number
22,000, they said eliminate.
all
I don't see it.
that includes in building and zoning,
No.
would save 12,000.
So if we just add the 3.5, it's only adding 12,000.
So
for
if
the
we were to
positions.
add, what do you think we need to add then back into this 213 number?
Well, if it costs us 12 and we're getting rid of the 22,000 for a new position of an intern, it actually nets us 10 after giving the 3.5.
So 223?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at line 90, correct?
Line 90, yeah.
Yes.
And I had 215,
94.
We had 213,906, but close.
So I have 213,094. If we eliminate the intern, that's 22,822. If you want to leave the COLAs as they are, then that column H modification would change from 34,922 to just 22,822.
I think that's consensus.
What would the
That
new,
seems like not enough numbers, 20,
what would the, Tim,
Oh,
what would the
that's an
what would the 215 become? Take your 215 and tell me what that comes when you drop the 22 and you add the COLA back in, instead of the delta.
It reduces it by 12.
I think
It
it
must
goes
be a little
up.
more than that.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna go up to like 220.
It'd be
No.
193.
Yeah, you're taking the 22 out.
So it's 193.
The 22 out.
Yeah, but then we have to put the.
193
Cola.
even,
Cola's less than that, it's
pre-COLA,
only 3.5%.
pre-raise.
Yes, but I
193.
think,
So, okay, just to be clear, the
Alex
number
might-
is $215,000. There's 2 items in there that reduce it, which is 34,922, COLA and the intern.
Okay.
If I get rid of the intern, which is 22,822, it comes to about 193,000.
But we're
what-
leaving the COLA.
We're leaving the COLA.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why it goes back up.
Okay.
Get you about
Got a
$200,000.
feeling that Brian-
You save about
that doesn't
15
look-
grand.
that doesn't feel
Yes.
right.
That's good.
COLA is $12,100.
Okay.
So that line would be what, 205, folks?
Yeah, keep on.
193.
One, with the
I don't think it is
3.5%
either.
raise, it's gonna be right about $200,000, so we'll save about 15. But then, Tim, you'll backtrack and also then adjust all the, whatever the intern, would they have received Social Security, Medicare, any benefits? All that stuff will need to be adjusted too, so we'll save a little bit there.
On the spreadsheet that we're following through over here, it recalculates that as we go, but it just sounds to me like if it's 112 for the treasurer, then we're saying that it's 80,000 for the other two people in the office, and that doesn't sound like enough.
One's part-time though,
I understand.
so something's missing?
So it seems like somehow we,
Is there a question? I got
yeah.
we'll talk.
The 192, 178 just doesn't seem quite right, because if we back out your salary and we back out Michelle's salary, it doesn't seem like we have enough left over for Julie.
Okay. I don't have that schedule in front of me. I can pull it out for you.
How much is Julie?
Thank you.
She paid out on
It's off of our website.
You know what you're saying though, right, Tim? Like just, like 112 plus Michelle gets us pretty much to where we're at right now. And then Julie's wages would be in this also. It just seems like one of, like we have 2 out of the 3 calculated into these expenses.
Cash out, she's 62,000. This part is benefits,
Right,
right?
thank you.
So we don't get paid attention to that.
I think what we just realized is that we're looking at salary number, and then there's the benefits number, and then the total number. So when we're looking at just the salary number, I think we're in the right place.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because
So that's loaded.
benefits are
Has the
20 to
health
30%
insurance.
Which are further down.
above the
Okay.
salary.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, now that makes
very
sense.
good.
So
That's a great catch.
I feel better
Yeah.
making this
Logic.
maybe 200,000.
Makes
rounding
sense,
it up.
okay.
Okay,
So the salary number
Just want-
roughly being 2 or
200,000?
205 is great, because the other stuff's caught up in there already.
okay. What do we want to do, folks?
So what you did earlier, 22,000 eliminated
205?
12 in the COLA, gets us to
Call it
about
205.
205, Tim.
Okay,
In
205.
salary, that's good.
All right, so
205.
salaries are 205 is what you're
Yeah.
I
saying.
mean, again,
Regular
I'll
salary.
entertain the idea that it's not enough. I'm sure I can share
Mhm.
that with staff and they'll be happy.
No, stop.
That keeps it 3.5, we're
So we
good.
went from 193 to 205.
Yes.
Yep,
yes.
okay, we're good. All
Thank
right.
you, Trees.
It was a combination of Janet and myself.
Yep, good job. And then next, any other item
And
on
this
this
sheet
page?
from Patsy.
Page 3 of 7, is there any other questions?
You got a note on the unemployment insurance?
Only that, I'm not sure how we were calculating it before, but, I mean,
I'm essentially just extrapolating out whatever we're charged by the payroll service.
so I'm just going by at 3 employees times the $7,000 base times 6% FUTA. And then this, there's a 0.85% increase. And then we have 3 times that, and the base of 13,590 for Illinois unemployment. So so unemployment, with 3 employees, I don't think it can be more than 1,607.
But you think it's more than 997? So you're increasing it by $600, 609.
Well, I don't know what our experience rate is, but I used the lowest one, so.
So far.
I don't have a good picture on how Illinois Department of Insurance, Employment Security rates us. I do know we took a ding sometime in the year because we had some terminations. Alls I do on this number is extrapolate it out. And how it gets allocated, and I saw you had a question on that, is I think it's 30% to administration, 70% to the police. We don't do anything to building and zoning. Could we? We could. Does it matter? I do not think so.
It's
Because
pretty
it's a
minimal.
part-time
It's a minimal
employee.
We
amount.
could, but that's just how they've always done it, and it's
Yeah.
just, of all the issues facing this village and the administration, I don't think allocating maybe $200 to a department, even though it's going to be paid, is very meaningful.
There you
But
go.
if you direct me to do that,
So what we're
That's what we'll do.
proposing to take 1,997 and move it to, you want to move it to just 1,500 just to be safer
In unemployment?
than unemployment?
Okay.
Is that what you're advocating?
Okay.
Sounds good.
That's a good compromise, safer.
The Social Security and Medicare should be
We'll adjust.
being recalculated based on the number, the 205 number.
Check.
I'm sorry, what needs to be recalculated?
The Social
Well-
Security and Medicare is the allotment.
So we got 12,710 for Social Security and 2,973 for Medicare on a $205,000.
I just used this, I don't know, what is it, 6.2, John, for Social Security? 1.45, right, for a total of 7.65, right. See, I remember that, John. And then I think there was a question on IMRF. I'm not sure what the question was, but they thought the rate was wrong.
Well, the rate, from what I could find, is .0665
Can I ask where you found that?
It is?
on their website.
How'd you calculate it? Because we get an actual from that from Oak Brook.
Yeah, that's,
So the numbers are right.
that changes every year,
We
the
get the
calendar
actual.
year, and of course, we're on a municipal fiscal year, so there's some differences.
The rate they published was for 2025, they don't publish a 2026 one.
Well, for 2025, it is 5.17. That's made up of four amounts. I can tell you what they are for the record. 3.37 for normal contribution, 0.93% for the adjustment contribution, 0.21% for death contribution, 0.04 for disability contribution, and 0.62% for supplemental contribution. That is what it is for calendar year 2025. That is what I'm going to use for the entire fiscal year, even though it's a little off. Back in
And-
2024, for your reference, we went from 5.17, previously we're at 8.67 at 2024. In 2023, we're at 9.95. I looked and looked, I cannot find that 6.65%.
No, we got to go with what Oak Brook, they
Right.
change it every year, folks, based
I
on the
understand that.
full actuarial needs of that fund and experience. Yeah.
I think a normal contribution of 3.37 is a miracle. It should be, if you look in some poorly funded pension funds, you're looking at 60, 70% of payroll. It's obnoxious.
Yeah, so
So what factor are you looking to use?
I'm sorry?
What factor are you looking to use?
What factor am I looking to use?
the published one.
5.17. The truth of the matter is, I don't have a choice in this factor. I contribute, I tell IMRF what our wages are,
That's
and they tell me what the employer contributions are, and they just take it out.
And that's
I don't
the
get to
number they gave.
calculate it.
Okay.
That depends on the tiers, too.
Yeah,
Tier
It
1.
does.
tier
yes,
2.
and we're lucky that
Everyone's at tier 2 here.
everybody's tier 2, so they're
Oh,
lower.
today, everybody's a tier 2?
Yep.
So we're taking 12.9, we're keeping it 12.926?
I'm sorry, which line are you
We're
looking at?
staying at 12.926, I'm just asking.
If it's
you.
RMRF,
Well,
yes,
yeah.
I will not touch RMRF.
That's fine.
All right.
I have a question on the first line, salaries. That is, Mark, that is your contract, correct?
Correct.
Should that be, for the sake of proper bookkeeping, down on line 207?
Yes.
As contracts,
Yes.
Yes, it shouldn't be an employee.
It should not be listed as an employee salary.
Oh, so we take that out.
Another question, so Tim, did you need a recap there?
Correct, no, I got that.
That one's good. The other is subscriptions and dues. Dues and subscriptions, line 112. I was just curious, our costs tripled from 24 to 25, went from 12 grand to 36,000, and then we have $25,000 budgeted. It looks pretty consistently. Prior to that, it was always, 12, 13, 7, 7,500. Why was it $36,000, and do we need $25,000?
I don't know why, I can't tell you why it jumped from 24 to the current year, and
Yeah.
that's because you pay for my CPA and SEMA certification. But it's not gonna go up that much. It could have been extrapolated out further. I'm sorry?
Now, that's in that 167, 670.
No, but there's an additional 10,000 for other fees that
And
could
we
be-
broke that out on here. So the 25,000, okay.
I haven't used it in 18 months, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be in the future.
And then what was it in 25? What was our actual? So that would leave still $26,000 and other dues and subscriptions. Do we need that? Is that a real number? Did we
No.
use
No, we made it up,
$26,000 outside of March
Ouija
10?
board. Ouija board
And we
work.
didn't expend any of that 10, we just budget for it.
Got it. So could this 25 number then be 15? I mean, is that leaving us?
What line item are you referring to again?
112.
Looking at line 112.
112,
Dues
15?
and subscription.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the 36 is. Doesn't sound like. I mean, it says our actual spend was $36,012 in dues and subscriptions, which is triple the highest.
So this is probably how you got the 36 in the forecast, is there were 10 months actuals. We're not going to have any other additional expenses in the next 2 months, well, the last 2 months of the fiscal year.
The
But
flyout
we,
shouldn't be
but
in
we
there.
extrapolated it out, so we're incurring
know-
expenses.
We better look and see if that's, we pay a membership fee to Metro West
Yeah.
and
And IML.
Oh, we
IML.
counted for that somewhere else.
Yes,
And IML.
that's right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it tripled. Like we've had
Well,
those,
Tim said that he had his,
and that won't happen
Exams.
again.
That won't
That's
happen
done.
again.
36 isn't the flyout number,
no.
right, Tim?
I'm sorry?
You're saying 36 actually isn't the flyout number, that was just the formula
Right,
extrapolating
yeah,
it?
it extrapolated out.
Okay,
I mean,
what's our-
I don't mean to disappoint anyone, but every one of these line
Our
items. I
our
do
actual is our
follow
actual
anyways.
right now.
Under the board expenses.
We could
Yeah, the
drop
bo-
it to 25 instead of the 36.
It is 25,000.
Yeah, it is 25.
Our actual spend was 36. Granted, that was
No, it wasn't, Nick, that's what I'm saying.
the
It's-
last 2 months we didn't have, right?
So maybe it's 30,000.
Yeah.
To your point,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so if it's 30,000, are we gonna be 30,000 next year, or is 25.5 okay, is what you're asking?
Yeah, could we pull 10 grand out of there? I mean, 15 is still more than we'd spend prior
Just let
outside of.
it be.
If you look at the spend
What's,
See
stuff.
what's Metro West cost per month?
Well, we also have that line.
That's
in-
probably
Look it up.
100 bucks
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
very
It's probably a lot,
expensive,
yeah.
though.
But we
Well,
also have line
We pay for
81
IML.
for,
As a
so,
member of
which,
And IML too.